Our next guest is using art to make a powerful statement about street harassment by making the incidents impossible to ignore. The social media project is called Catcalls of NYC, which gets followers to share their experiences with the unwanted comments through Instagram. 21-year-old Sophie Sandberg then goes to the location where it took place and writes down the harasser's words in brightly colored chalk on the sidewalk. Sophie is a student at NYU, and she joins us now from New York City. Welcome, Sophie. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start, as they say, at the beginning. What was the inspiration for this?
So I grew up in New York, and I was 15 when I first got catcalled. And no one had ever told me about catcalling. They didn't tell me how uncomfortable I would feel. So I was very confused when it happened, and I didn't know how to respond. I thought, should I say thank you? Is it something I'm wearing? Is there something wrong with me? And, you know, then I experienced it for 5 more years. I came to college, and I decided to do something about it.
You know, a lot of the images that you've posted on your Instagram page, they are a little too explicit and derogatory for us to be able to show on this show. But what have you learned from having other women share their stories with you?
Well, I've learned how derogatory it can get, mainly. I mean, I got a lot of compliments when I was walking down the street, which, you know, make me feel uncomfortable. But from other women, I've learned how derogatory it can get, how it can often be linked to following, and, you know, physical harassment, groping. The stories can get really crazy and really violent really easily. That's something I've learned from having women share their stories with me.
So you have been pushing this project forward, and simultaneous to this, the Me Too movement has been gaining incredible steam and attention across North America. What has it been like for you to witness these two movements in parallel?
Yeah, well, it's great. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 2 years now, and for it to get noticed at a time like this, I think makes a lot of sense. It's a time when women are sharing their stories and refusing to stay silent. Catcalling was something that, you know, silenced a lot of people for a long time, and I think sharing our stories is a way to, you know, push back against that, like the Me Too movement. I think that, you know, as a society, we're kind of saying this is no longer something that we'll accept. You know, we're going to raise awareness, we're going to speak back against it, and it's no longer acceptable.
You know, one thing that I find really interesting about your project, Sophie, is that it exists in 2 mediums. In the real world, then you take a picture and then you put it out there on social media. And in my experience, the reaction that something gets in the real world, sometimes different than a reaction that you can get through the anonymous nature of social media. What are you discovering about how people are reacting in those 2 worlds?
Well, I think that being anonymous can make people less afraid to speak their minds, which can make people meaner, honestly. It can make people say, you know, some really gross things. I think in the real world, I haven't had that many horrible experiences where, you know, people will say mean things to me, whereas on social media, sometimes people can get really aggressive and really angry. In the real world, it's easier to, like, have a dialogue with someone, you know, because you're just 2 people standing across from each other. And I think people are willing to speak to you more there, whereas on social media, it can get aggressive. You know, but at the same time, I think people are also, you know, excited to share their stories with me on social media. And it can be good to be anonymous in that sense, because, you know, they feel free to share their stories without their face attached to it. So I think it's twofold, but it can be positive and negative.
Sophie, you said you've been doing this for 2 years. Do you have any sense of how much longer you want to pursue this? And is there an end goal in mind before you stop?
Well, what's really exciting right now is that catcalls are popping up in different cities. So there's a catcalls of Montreal, there's a catcalls of Costa Rica, there's a catcalls of Manila in the Philippines. And that's kind of something that I had hoped would happen. It's popping up all around the world. It's showing people that it happens, again, all around the world. So I think that's one of the main end goals. I don't see stopping anytime soon, as long as it's something that still happens. I'm hoping, you know, to have more hands on board in New York. I'm the only one who's done it so far, and it would be good for me to have help. But I don't see it stopping anytime soon until, you know, catcalling stops and street harassment stops.
And I've got to ask, what do your family, what do your friends think about this movement that you've started?
Well, that's one of the main reasons why I've been able to keep going. They're so enthusiastic from the beginning. My friends go with me oftentimes. You know, they support me. My family's really excited about it too. They didn't know how to react when I first got catcalled back when I was 15, and they love that this is my way of, you know, reclaiming that time in a way and finding my voice. So it's been really exciting.
Sophie Sandberg, thank you for sharing your story with us. We wish you the best of luck, and happy holidays and happy New Year.
Thank you so much.